Well done, Kieran.
Hey, leave me out of it. We broke it, didn't we?
No, you broke it.
Shut up.
So we just need to do that and it puts it back in.
There
Cool.
we go. We are live again, and we're all here. Fantastic. Let me get the document open.
Should we make an announcement in the
Yes.
thing? I
Think we already did?
don't
Someone saw we were doing it.
I don't see the announcement.
No, as in there's someone who joined.
It's Richard joined.
Oh god, that is there we go. That completely fucked up the cropping, but I can remove people that don't have video on the big screen part, so that's okay. I fixed it. That would have been
Good.
Where in the fuck is this document?
Oh, you can hide non-video participants, can't you?
Yeah, that's why I just did that. God damn it, Richard.
Don't go. Don't go.
Don't go, Richard. No. Right.
Just so you know, Richard, we are actually going to be streaming this with video. It's a private stream, so no one's going to be live, at least not yet. This is more just to test it, but it means I can upload it straight to YouTube from here. So we may have to try and be a little bit better with fucking up, but that's okay.
I mean, like, isn't half of the fun of live
It's private stream?
Isn't half the fun of live stream everyone seeing the bit being like, well, this was meant to work and it's not. Yay!
Yeah, that's true. Okay, just double checking. We're all here. We are all here. Lovely, fantastic, and right.
I feel like I should put a jumper or something that makes me look a little more formal.
Who gives a shit?
Welcome, Tom. I need to turn off notifications.
I should probably do that as well.
Could I please ask either Tom or Richard to click the link in podcast chat and just make sure you're seeing the
what we are seeing.
the live stream and that you can hear.
Well, is it? Are you set to like non-private because otherwise they're not going to be able to see it because it's private?
Oh yeah, shit! I need to fix that.
So yes, can you please go to this thing you don't have access to and let us know if you want
unlisted. That's what I need it to be. Okay, try now.
Right. So, message that. I think that's what that said.
Oh, I've been up too long.
Probably.
I get up for 5 for work. At 5 for work.
Well, I start work at 9:30.
Yep, that's fine, Tom.
You roll out of bed at 4:15?
I roll about at past. Just roll out and load up the computer, start working. That's pretty much it.
Is there sound coming through okay for you, Tom, with the stream? Obviously mute it because you're listening live, but yeah, it takes a while to be safe.
Unless you want to hear our echoes at the end of time.
So, we make a start of it then.
Yep.
So I think we've got 10 points so far.
Well, as in this is probably going to be just a lot of brainstorming rather than having a structured.
Yeah, no.
So to speak.
It's not COVID, I promise.
Because I don't think we can really do any kind of like specific clear-cut structure. It's just let's start making stuff, which is why I suggested what do we want in the world first, as opposed to because it's like there's no point working out like the climate of a desert settlement if you don't know what you want in the desert settlement.
Fair point.
It's true. Okay. Okay. 5 seconds countdown, and we will begin. And welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of Two Ashes You Say, the companion podcast of the Phoenix Games Club. I am Nick, your host, and joining me this evening are Chairman Kieran and Treasurer Andy. How are you doing, guys?
Hello.
Hello. All good here?
This once.
So before we get started this evening, I just wanted to point out, just broadcast to you who may be listening, that one of our longtime friends and members of the club, Doug, is currently receiving care for an accident he had a couple of weeks back. We wish him the best. As far as we know, he is okay, but he is currently in residence somewhere. We're not too sure where yet, but we're looking forward to hearing from him again soon. So
could also be code words for he's actually a secret spy that's on a mission somewhere.
Could be.
Could be.
In any case, this episode will be kind of building on the previous episode where we've been talking about designing settings and how to run other settings. And so what we're going to do for you this evening is design the foundations for a setting within the game that we all know best, which is D&D. So it will be a high fantasy magic kind of setting. We're gonna come up with some landmass, some towns, climates, populations, natural features, the political landscape, other places of interest, and so on. I will turn this over to begin with Kieran, who produced a few documents earlier in his designing of such things. So, Kieran.
So back when I first started playing D&D, so this was my first year of uni, I dived basically headfirst into D&D 5th, which was the first edition that I played, and I ran first. I'd never played before. So the way that I kind of went about it was I came up with some core assumptions about the world first, and I was chatting with Nick about this before we started. So the main assumptions I put for the world are, number one, the gods oversee the world. So it's basically the fact that the gods are present, they are around, and they look in on what's happening on the material plane and they interact with it. Second point was that much of the world is untamed. So there are regions of civilization and populace, but large swathes of it are untamed. There's very little movement or peoples that live in these wild areas. The next assumption... Oh, go ahead.
The question to jump in, because this is what I do. So you say it is mostly untamed and wild. Whether is that wild, are we going to do for wild in a case of there are jungles and there are a lot of big monsters around, or there are barren wastelands and there's not really a lot going on there, nothing can grow? Like, what sort of untamed are we looking at?
Thinking of it when I designed this is back when I was a very naive young GM, and all these fanciful ideas. I think back then, when I thought of untamed, I thought of basically sort of wilderness, so not necessarily barren. It may be that it's not like good for growing crops, so you won't really get civilization living there. But it was more that it's like dense forests, overgrown moors, and that sort of thing, unsettled lands.
Yeah, because I guess like I'm just trying to tie into what we're making in terms of like, are we going to be going for wild untamed lands?
Well, I think what we're going to benefit from here, or hopefully benefit from, is that none of us have really come with a plan for what we want to see. This is more or less just going to be us having a roundtable discussion and coming up and generating ideas. Those of
Do you ever come with a plan?
Well. So, we do have some listeners, other members of the club, Tom and Richard, who are also welcome to drop in their ideas, and You know, if they're particularly good, we will probably use them. If they're not particularly good, we probably still will use them. But yeah,
Yeah.
the end goal of this essentially is we're going to construct this setting, and then run a brief club-sponsored, but not on a Thursday game that will last for a couple of weeks, which Andy has already been volunteered into running for us. So thank you, Andy.
I was told, by the way, you're running this, right? And I was like, yes, I guess, sure, yeah.
I mean, it was partly at my insistence, as I have to say, I've been in too few games run by you, Andy.
Oh, you're in for a ride.
Oh, I always enjoy your games because, I mean, you never quite know what you're going to get, which I think is good. Because you do love your complicated plots, which is why normally when I have a problem or I need something to really get the player's teeth into, I'll go, hey, Andy, what would be a weird way of doing this? And we'll chat for like an hour. But, yeah.
Well, I will reserve some right to mess around with some things between when we finish this and when we actually run a game. Just need to keep some mystery in. But
yeah.
I can explain my thought process potentially like during or after.
So
I think it'd be good.
the next part of this design phase, at least, is at some point we're going to come up with a dungeon, at least to run in the system, you know, to provide the adventure hook. And now all of us, I think, do like designing dungeons. That's one of my favourite things about designing, at least. But how we intend to record that is yet to be decided, unless we do it privately, so the potential players don't know about all the horrible pit traps full of acid that we're going to be distributing.
You're looking at me.
Yes, I am.
You're looking at me when you say that, yeah. I love a good pit trap.
What we could do is just we just plot together the dungeon and then just set it on someone else and then publish the plotting episode after they've kind of already gone through it.
Yeah.
That would probably be the best way to do it. So
yeah,
we want to come up with a like an overarching thesis, or this overarching particular element that we want to base our game around. The last setting that I designed, which was my Pathfinder one, I wanted pirate themes. So I came up with the idea of rather having a specific nation that a party represents. It is made of a conglomerate of nations that are all different kind of pirate monarchies and hierarchies and political landscapes that have a loose affiliation with each other, which is generally the way pirates tended to work. Like each ship was its own nation that they would also congregate in places such as, you know, Tortuga, Port Royal, and so on, where they were, you know, totally not Pirates of the Caribbean, but these were real places, or like Nassau, for instance. All these real places that were
hubs.
Yeah, like Mos Eisley cantinas, pretty much. It was just full of Mos Eisley cantinas. But so yeah, what do you think, guys? Do you have any kind of?
I would actually like to. Like one thing that I don't think has really been touched on that much in a lot of things is like when you say high fantasy, I mean like high fantasy. You know, like floating islands, cities that are just like held in the sky, giant like chasms where like, you know, the sort of like where it's almost like almost it's very magical and it's kind of like very high fantasy, like higher than Tolkien.
So I get what you mean.
Interpretation of high fantasy. I thought you were when you put the emphasis on high, I thought you were going somewhere else with that, but yeah.
Well, with that, I think that kind of makes me think. Like my thought process when you say to give that description is where it's like there are just magical things everywhere. Like everything is sort of mystical and wonderful, or horrific and terrifying. But no, I like that idea. So it's things like it's not uncommon to see these things like, I don't know, water running up a waterfall, that sort of thing, where it's just innately magical phenomena and sights and sounds that you are experiencing. Oh, I like the idea.
Yeah.
Like I get what you mean, where it's literally like Netheril. Sorry, for those that don't know, I can sense Andy's question. Netherese in the Forgotten Realms are a magocracy, like the pinnacle of magical knowledge and lore. So is that the sort of thing you were thinking, where like not just people, but the world itself?
The world itself is inherently magical, so like giant flying turtles that have entire cities housed on their back flying over canyons is a like, wouldn't say like a common thing, but it's like not something people would go, I've never seen that before. It's just, oh, this is what happens in this part of the world. Like magic is very prevalent. So you like you mentioned, like there might just be a bit where like the river just kind of like suddenly goes off a cliff, and rather than going down, it just sort of goes up towards like another place. And you have scholars studying this to be like, why did this happen? And they're like, we have no idea.
Right, well, shall we note that down
Yeah,
then?
just,
Andy, would you like to?
Yeah, so I'll go I guess high magic potential, high fantasy.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, where you've just got these random magical phenomenon just scattered around, kind of like breadcrumbs, where it's just weird and wonderful things which aren't so out of the native people's scope that they've never seen or heard of them, but it's kind of going, oh, right, that's interesting. But they wouldn't go, oh my god, I've never seen this before. It's kind of like you have that expectation of the populace that they will be accustomed to seeing these wonders, but the players won't. I like it.
So with
Okay.
Poseidon, just to kind of develop how this would work in terms of if these land masses that are kind of hovering over things are like if they mean anything with regards to like could we introduce like a hierarchy in that nobles and rich people will live on the above, like the ones that are highest up, and then we kind of have a descending of down to the lower dregs of society that are on the surface.
Well, here's a question actually, just to go counter to that, because I guess the one we always come back to is like, what do we want in the world? Like, what are we looking to do? Are we looking to essentially the entire world is going to be like essentially just almost like floating islands and stuff, or is it like the section of the world is floating islands, a section over here like the water rises or like pools into bubbles, or like, are we essentially going to focus on one area for the game, and we're just going to work on that area, which is probably more achievable for us?
It almost seems to me like the elemental planes kind of fused with the material, with kind of the way you've described it, where you've got like these floating islands. So you could almost have it like, I don't know, in this world, the elemental planes don't exist. There are just regions of the world where a different elemental force rules.
Ooh. One thing we could like steal from another system to a degree is the like elemental poles. So there's like sections in the world which like heavily red-lit, which you could write it into the lore and being like, each of the elements comes from each of these things, so they are at their principle there, and these kind of like have an effect upon the areas around them.
So almost have like, we could always have like nation. I know it's a later topic, but like nations based around. Are we basically making Avatar at this point?
Probably not. So let's rip off Avatar.
No, but I get what you mean. So I like the idea of sort of having like the elemental poles in the world.
It can be. It doesn't have to be like poles where there's only like one of each element. It could be like these are almost like ley lines and
nexus points. That's what I was thinking. Like where things start to overlap and you get kind of a confluence of things, meaning that one element or others dominates. I like the idea.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Just so just to be clear, I don't think any of us are above poaching ideas from pre-existing things.
No, definitely not.
But no, I like this idea. It's a very if we're gonna borrow something from a movie, let's pick a good movie. But that's an argument for another time.
Well, as someone in the comments just said, if you're going to steal from the best.
Hey, Avatar's pretty damn good.
Oh yeah. So I think so. That's kind of what we want to see. So that's sort of like the climate of this world. We've got these nexus points of elements causing these phenomena, which can basically tie into why it's so high fantasy, where you've just got these areas where what we would consider normal laws of physics don't quite apply because magic
Yeah, like
and wave.
the
A wizard did it.
on them kind of just bends reality to a degree. It's almost like the entire, like, from fantasy trope, Fey influence, where everything's just a bit more.
Actually, one way I'm viewing this in my head. If we're looking at like climate and weather in such a situation where magic is really affecting it, we're kind of globalizing wild magic in that regard. So we could we could end up having certain storms, or like confluences of other colliding weather systems that end up producing really weird effects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all down for chaos magic storms.
So 3.5 D&D had similar things to this, and they were kind of where you had crossing points between the material plane and an elemental plane, were located at locations associated with these strong presences. So like the heart of a volcano could take you to the element plane of fire, the heart of a tornado, like a whirlpool, that sort of thing. So I like that we can sort of have these mystical phenomenon which are just spawned from these elemental forces. I like it.
Okay. It's raining fireballs.
It's raining salt.
Oh, that'd be awful.
Because
You want it to be really bad, it's raining salt.
Oh yeah.
Well, because the one thing I kind of want to avoid doing, where it's only elemental, like it could be all manner of like things, like the souls, like it doesn't have to be it's raining fire.
Quasi-elemental planes. It's raining oozes. It's slime.
It's raining bless.
But no, I think it's sort of I like the idea because, well, especially you've got kind of different combinations of the 4 base elements in D&D. You can kind of like the plane of mud, the plane of salt, the plane of steam, ice, ooze, that sort of thing. I like the idea.
Yeah, we could build a great table off that, like start of every session, just see how the weather changes, and then everyone. Why do we live?
Which element? Yeah, exactly. Someone in the comments just went, "Oh my god, holy crap, guys! It's raining, rain, like actual water."
I don't think that's the
Well, I think that can also sort of how one thing we can sort of touch on later is how would that affect things like the plant life and the animals that have evolved here.
Well, perhaps maybe it's not entirely chaotic. It's like a spectrum that things happen within, which is often tied to the exact nexus. So obviously, like this one place, taking the example we've been using so far, it rains fire. It rains acid, but it doesn't then suddenly start raining frogs.
Acid.
Yeah, I mean, we would
I get what you mean.
have to be at least some point where it would make sense that one is survivable here.
Yeah.
If we're just going to have like inserted list of.
As in, they don't have to be like things like fire or acid. It could be things like, it rains petals.
It could be as well, like if we're talking about these sort of nexus points, it could be that they're almost areas where civilization avoids, because they know that things are going to get really weird there, and they could live near some of those areas, which could affect local climate, terrain, plant life.
And those areas happen to be points where necessary resources are, where people wanting to make their fortune or to find cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a very good idea for like adventurers want to go there because there's a lot of weird stuff over there, and there's probably there's maybe here's an idea, the kind of like some sort of element that is naturally forming around these nexuses is used for civilization to like power things.
That, or it's kind of like I'm thinking of like the rift from Torchwood, where these are just points where things from other places just wash up.
Have either of you ever played Dragon Age Inquisition?
Yes.
Yes.
You see, the red crystals that the currently Templars have. It's that kind of thing where there are these weird confluences of portals and things.
Well, red lyrium is just corrupted lyrium.
But it grew.
As in, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, you know, like it could these parts of the world that are influenced by this weird magic. For like,
I think I just showed my nerd card there.
yeah. So like, why would this? Why has this happened? Is this just a natural result of the planet, or was there maybe a great magic war at some point that just completely
I
caused
actually
things to
ra-
kind of merge together and become horrible?
I personally rather like the idea that this is naturally forming. So it's kind of like it's not one of these ones where people have just become used to it. It's just it's always been the case. Obviously, if you guys like think it would be better otherwise, you know.
Idea of having like whole civilizations that have just developed and evolved under these conditions, because you don't really see that. I mean, you see like what's the setting? Dark Sun. So Dark Sun is the setting where everything's dead, entropy is everywhere. And I think this one is kind of like almost kind of flipping that, going, everything's alive, everything is vibrant and powerful.
Yeah, and it's like it's not like you know cities like you know when you go into a place, it's not like they became like this because they had to adapt to changing circumstances. Like no, they evolved like this.
So it could lead to some interesting, almost sort of regional variances in the species. So rather than having like the standard elves that we would talk about, you could just have like dwarves and everything that have just adapted over millennia to kind of being in these places.
Yeah.
Like the Ganassi are just going to be really common. Like there are no humans, there are just Ganassi.
Well, with like when we're probably going to come to like races at some point, but I think actually like it might be worth just essentially renaming Ganassi to almost like Nexus touched.
Yeah.
That works. Like there could be entire civilizations of people that revel in the chaos that is before them, and they just kind of live there because.
I mean, this wouldn't quite be chaos if it's natural. It's just
well, nature can be chaotic.
Yeah. It's nature. It's just normal nature.
It's just this. No, it's not chaotic. It's just natural. They're living naturally.
This is the world. We need to live like the world, so we're just gonna, embrace it.
I mean, that could be like how kind of druids roll. They kind of go, "Why are you resisting? Like, this is the world we live in." Druids in this world must be really weird. All right. Okay. So we sort of talked about some of the climates, and I think we've touched on the major sort of points here, where we've got the sort of regions, not like poles as you put it, but kind of like just almost kind of random regions where you've got an element or elements that kind of preside over things.
I put them down as like nexus of power.
Yeah. And it could be that's almost what they're used for, as in these nexus points. If we want to go down, like as you said, like high magic, high fantasy, if these people have developed in a world with these things, they would definitely find uses for them. They if they're developing near and around them over millennia, they'd have found a use for these nexus points.
Yeah.
So as you said, when you mentioned there's like materials that are only going to be found in their presence, which as you put are vital for civilization, which we can touch on.
Yeah, no, this is cool. Actually, I'm already very enthused with this this beginning. So
it's the first time I've ever collaboratively designed a setting.
Yeah.
So I guess we might should we like focus on like where we want the game to be to like set, because I guess we don't need to map out the entire world. We just need to map out where we're going to be playing, because otherwise we're going to be here till the next generation.
Yeah. Before we get into that, though, I think that since we've kind of got the kind of loose overarching concept here, one of the other things I think we need to apply to this overarching concept is gods within this area. So in general, I think we could probably just import gods from insert D&D setting, because they are mostly fairly fairly amenable to being moved around. But given how the world is quite different in this one, I think the God of Magic will probably be a little bit different.
Well, might I pose this counter suggestion? In that we still have gods, but we treat them more like almost like the Fae.
I
where
was going sort of down that route as well in my head.
so like they are still gods, they're still powerful, but they're kind of more like it's more like a squabbling bureaucracy rather than a kind of like a pantheon. And
Like Greek mythology.
yeah, like Greek mythology, only it might be more like localized. So what is a god in one area, it may not be a god in another area, so to speak.
So a suggestion from the comments is that they don't worship gods, they just tap into the nodes directly. They worship these nodes. Well, that could be something like cults of the nodes, or cults of the nexus.
Yeah, we could do.
That's a cool idea, actually.
I mean,
really like that.
we probably could like just have those anyway as well, because like people are really like magic.
Well, that could be something for like in 5th edition at least. Like that could be partly what causes sorcerers, as in they're born on or near these nexus points. So you could have it that like sorcerers are much more common in this society because everyone can do magic. Like, why would you want to like train for years? Yeah, just get born on a nexus point. I think that's more like culture, sort of population. But
Yeah,
so
no, I
gods,
like that.
right?
You're more deeply tapped into the world. And,
Literally,
Yeah.
yeah. So gods, I like the idea of having them almost like the Fae, where they are also. I kind of Andy's view on gods is something that I tend to do as well, which is where when you meet them, they're kind of like the way the Greeks perceive their gods. They are people. They're not like these hoity-toity over everything. They interact with you. They talk to you. They view you as like bugs beneath their feet. But I kind of role play them because I role play gods in our campaign, Nick, as I'm sure you know.
I know.
When you keep summoning them. And the way I will read what their dogma and their domains are, and I will just imagine them as if they are the peak of that dogma, as in like how to. But so we could have gods kind of like be not like present and walking around in the world, but a lot more at each other's throats and active. Yeah, they are not opposed to interacting in the world because I mean the world's already highly magical. What much more can a god's influence do?
Well, also, I kind of like the idea that of so to speak local gods. So if like someone comes from a faraway land, they don't know about the gods over here. So to speak. It's not like universal gods where everyone who worships the god of magic knows of like so and so. It's I worship this person. Oh, what's their portfolio? They're of this element, and it's like, oh, what a coincidence! I worship this person who is also doing that, and now we must fight.
Yeah, exactly. It's things like there's the like I like the idea of kind of splitting gods down into sort of like how the locals view it. No one quite knows what's going on up there. It could be that they're all the same person, just going, yeah, like my followers are killing each other because literally I just changed my hat, as someone said in the comments, like, oh no, that's not me, that's my brother, Shu. like we're both gods of magic. Sorry, we're quoting the Avatar here. But no, I like the idea where you've got that local distinction between them and people worship them in the same but different ways. I think that would work.
You can also get weird and confused, like non-normal gods. So you can so for example, in a desert, there's not going to be like the god of forest, so to speak, but over in like the wooded area, there is going to be, and like they're going to be a really big thing, or
local power as well.
Yeah,
their influence. Oh, that's the thing. Like it could be that that might mess over clerics a little bit, but it could be things like you feel less connected to your god if you're in a region where their portfolio isn't present. So if, for example, you're a god of water and you're in a desert, you're not going to feel as strongly connected.
Well, that might be a very like a reason that maybe people don't travel as much, or like some people are more secular, just because if you are of the divine sort, you don't know if the place you're going to you're going to still have that link, maybe.
That's an interesting thought. Like we could have all these different settlements, cities, and kingdoms and so on that are just kind of distributed around, but they're all very insular. So for them to see other travelers who, for some weird reason, like to travel around in a world like this, and they just find that a bit.
Yeah, well, why would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, as in like it could be that like outsiders are not going to be uncommon if you've got like, as we said, sort of flying cities. But it's like people traveling between these places would be sort of like very rare and unheard of, because like why do you travel outside your community? Like,
Or maybe like it's like there's like one airship a month, and that's pretty much it. Like,
and you come in on a, what is that thing with 4 legs that you're sitting on its back? What is a horse, sir? I think this is an interesting idea though, and that could be partly sort of like we need to give them a reason as to why these people are adventuring. But I think that's sort of good for like the general terrain. People tend not to travel, or if they do travel, it's not going to be they're going to be moving in a very refined and sort of almost mystical. What we read is mystical for them. Oh yeah, the turtle, it just comes, it swoops low, lands for a day, and then it just flies off. Travels east, lands by another city. Clear as clockwork, and no one quite knows why.
just make sure.
And I think it's like they utilize the mystical, the innately mystical nature of the world to travel, to do things, to power things. I like it.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's sort of like things like the general terrain, where you've got these local, insular sort of communities, each of which kind of has their own variations of a god, that sort of thing.
Before we move on, because like obviously the kind of reason why divine types are very insular is because they draw upon like these local gods. But would that also extend to say the local magic as well, as in like the stuff that say sorcerers or and like wizards are doing? Like again, part of the reason they don't travel is because the further they get away from the nexus they crafted the magic through, the weaker it becomes until they can like connect with another one.
So that's like, as in, magic is innately tied to these elemental nexus points. It doesn't matter which one you're near, but the further you travel from one, like the hard, almost sort of like, it doesn't have to be like a mechanical, could be a mechanical thing, but it's sort of like you feel like the fact that it's kind of like you just feel cold all the time, that style of thing, where you don't feel the same connection. Like when you're standing in your citadel located a mile away, magic crackles at everybody's fingertips. You travel 50 miles away, it's just you feel it ebbing. I like the idea. And it could also explain why, as you said, like wizards and sorcerers, like, why are you traveling? Like, you know no one can do magic out there. And that could just be like local superstition.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, it could be like they travel so far, and then they work out, they have no idea where the other nexuses are. So they're going, I'm struggling to draw power here, I'm just going to go back.
It's like we send scout parties out every now and again to hopefully find another nexus to travel to make a new trade route. Unfortunately, we haven't found one yet.
I like that idea, because it's kind of like where you kind of need to leapfrog between these like if you're traveling and you're intending to sort of, it could be, I mean, I'm reticent to kind of hugely restrict sort of players if you're choosing to play a magic user and that sort of thing, like where you've gone out of Nexus, your character is unplayable. We could just apply. I know this is getting into mechanics, which isn't really something.
No justification for them to leave.
Well, the thing is,
things just like high magics, or like the things that people take for granted in these Nexus areas.
Yeah, it could be very much like, you know, in whereas the cities are built up, it's like high magic, everything's magical. You know, they have magic healing, magic flying cities, magic like kids daycare. But as you get further away, it becomes like normal D&D levels of thing. And
Mythalar, basically, near these nexus points act as Mythalar, like the Netherese, where they use these things which just meant everybody can do magic. Like everything in this citadel is magic. It's all powered from the nexus. You leave it and it just all starts going weird. Or, as someone just suggested, outside of these nexus points, it just starts becoming everyone has wild magic. I like that idea.
Oh, I just had an idea. I just had a thought. So, one of the reasons we could expect people to want to venture out into these, more wildy areas that are a bit that they could be dangerous or for whatever reason, is that they there is this loose knowledge of a certain element that is native to the landmass that can be turned into,
Unobtainium?
yeah, they could be turned into that kind of like a foci. So you're able to travel beyond your nexus and still be able to retain that connection with the magic
Ooh.
that sustains you.
That's how airships work. That's their fuel.
And that's yeah, and it could also cause you know, they could cause wars because some may have more than others. People are constantly sending people out to find more of it because it is super useful to get around the world, and it's a very precious resource that not many people have access to. But those that do,
So it's kind of like a power core.
yeah,
Like you imbue it with a connection to each of these nexuses. And it can also be sort of like how spellcasters sort of get around it and how they're able to keep at least their connection to magic is that could be also why the wizards and sorcerers, when they leave, are quite sort of rare. They might need a piece of whatever this material is to kind of keep that connection and
Okay,
kind of like a cleric's holy symbol.
yeah.
yeah. So it gives a danger to travel because others may try and take it off them, but it also gives them a kind of
Like that's how they're still.
intimidation that they know that this guy is not to be travelled with if he is carrying one of these things. So I mean,
He's going to get mugged.
He's going to get mugged. I mean, we're not going to have like a wizard just kind of travelling alone on a road. Well, what kind of wizard does that anyway? But, yeah.
No, but I like that idea where it's kind of that like if you do want to travel, it's kind of it reminds me literally. I'm just thinking of just lyrium from Dragon Age, as in it's like as opposed to like being near the Nexus where magic is just in the air, like it's everywhere. When you're traveling to these places, you need to have a physical manifestation of that power to use.
And the more chaotic the magic is in a given area, the more of this resource there is.
Kind of like the rods in a reactor.
Yeah,
like they stop it going wild.
There's also just to kind of essentially help the divine users, gods could probably do like give something that is of like similar worth for their favor, essentially.
Yeah.
All right, no, this is all good stuff. We've already.
This is a weird setting, but I like it.
It's very cool.
I think maybe, who knows, if this goes well, we'll properly write this setting out. Who knows? Copyright Phoenix Games Club.
Yeah, all rights reserved, apart from the ones that we can't.
Of course.
We won't say what ones.
Okay, copyright. No, I think this is a nice idea though, and yeah, so like it could be that like if you're planning on traveling as a spellcaster, like it might be that you need to sort of have a connection or at least some link to raw magic to kind of assuage any wild magic, and it could be that those that lose it or don't have it, they're at risk of having wild magic, because that means that if in this system, if you don't want to mechanically cripple a player by going, oh no, you lost your amulet, you can't do anything now, but it could be you can still do magic, but you are risking wild stuff happening.
Because one thing we could do, I guess this is like jumping ahead a little bit, is like along the lines of this explains why wizards have to I guess rest to get spell slots back, because they have to essentially try and reattune to the kind of like nexus.
Well, they literally recharge from it.
Yeah, and like when they actually arrive at this new land, like the first thing they're going to want to do is, okay, we need to reattune to this new local nexus.
I like the idea, and it as someone in the comments has said, it can finally give a reason as to why wizards have spell slots.
Yeah.
But no, I like this idea. So it could be that. But it could be that like all spellcasters in some fashion have to have a link to a nexus.
Whether that
if they don't, they need to almost it could be that you can draw magic from the world around you, but it's going to be unstable. It's going to be wild and almost
wild magic.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is a nice idea.
I think I do also like the idea of like so everyone can have access to wild magic, but at the same time, if you're like in a place away from any nexuses, magic will just be weaker because it's
Yeah.
overflowing.
It's kind of like it kind of goes to what we would call like a low magic setting, where it's things like you're trying to craft a potion. Good luck. So it's like your spells will work fine, but trying to push magic into any form of permanent form is just not going to work. Because it's almost like it's lacking the order and the stability that a nexus would give it. I'm liking the word nexus.
Yeah, Nexus is, everyone likes Nexus. It's a cool.
I think that's what we could call the setting, nexus.
Yes.
I think
Yes, we're doing. Okay, right. We have a name. I think we'll keep.
we've got a name for. I think that's the name of this episode as well. Nexus. I like this. Okay, so I like the idea. Like it could be just everyone can do magic, but like people don't want to because wild magic is just unpredictable. It's really dangerous, so people just won't do it.
Well,
Some of these things could go wildly wrong.
Especially like when you're maybe that's why they have all these like the things like academies and stuff like that, where it's essentially like anyone can do the magic. We just don't want people doing their own magic and blowing half the city up.
So we provide you
And
with a
it's like-
special area for you to do so.
Hmm.
To experiment.
Practice and whatnot. So, okay, where would this go in? This would be under. I'm going to put this in settlements and living areas.
No, I think it's a good idea. Like I know it's sort of like brainstorming, but I think we've done quite well so far.
Yeah, we got a lot.
Like we've made something that's I have never heard of before, personally. But I know I think it's good. We should do this again. Okay, so so we've done the
We're doing
yeah,
we're really just doing high fantasy because we know it best. But we could translate this kind of idea into settings for other games, which would be
Yeah.
cool to do.
so we've sort of gone through general terrain for local land masses and why we've gone people don't travel, people are insular, and now we've gone this is why people don't travel. I like it. Okay.
Well, before we move on,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
obviously we're going to be set in a certain section of this world. What type of terrain are we going for here? Like desert, plains, mountains, like lots of water, etc.
So I think, given how we've kind of already established a kind of the way magic behaves in the climate in different places, I would think that it would depend on what kind of magic is going on in a particular area, and that would dictate roughly what.
Well, I guess we can probably say like what sort of the thing we want, and we can just sort of tailor the nexus to cater to that. I think like because I guess my main thing is like, do we want like a like Arabian desert style bazaar civilization? Do we want like multifaceted cities on floating rocks? Do we want like underwater city? You know, like what is our kind of like the theme we're going to use for where we're going to play the game? Because we sort of just need to work that out before we start working out what's in it.
So I think we may want to look at kind of like a steppe, like in Mongolia, for instance, where it's just mostly just rolling hills and plains as far as you can see, that eventually develop into barren wastelands or small mountainous complexes or areas of high heat and high cold and so on, where it's not really moderated by any kind of like ocean that's really close by. Although we could come up with an ocean as well, which would alter the terrain as well. The temperature and things are dictated by oceans for the most part.
Well, they don't have to be.
I like that idea. Yeah. I like the idea of, as Andy said, like the floating cities.
Yeah, that is cool. We can't live on the ground
Because I think
it's just, we can't live.
it's too far from it. Well, no, it could just be it's too far from the nexus.
Yeah.
Well, because actually, this reminds me a little of was it the like you know like lore behind magic? It reminds me. I think it's Zendikar.
Yeah.
where it's kind of like there's a lot of I think there's a lot of primal energy, and they had I think it is quite mountainous as well. So I guess I'm kind of like imagining sort of thing where it's like craggy, rocky terrain, where like some things may live down there, but then there's also these giant like monolithic like floating islands of varying sizes that sort of dot around this area as well, and people tend to build their cities on top of the.
I like that idea. Where you've kind of got, so we could kind of go from like Nick's idea, which is where you've got these steep sort of like steps with like mountain and rolling hills, and you've got like mountainous areas, and you've got like the floating cities near here, all carved into the mountains with like floating pieces and little things. I like that idea.
Because I actually rather like that like not all floating things are going to be inhabited. Some just are around.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, maybe they're too small or they're too weirdly kind of geographically.
Or maybe they move too much.
Maybe they move too much.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no.
Some stable, some unstable. Like, do they decay after a while? Like, do they just kind of fall apart?
They just migrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that idea.
So I guess that means that the kind of nexus here is probably going to be like something like gravity based or air based or something to do with like the thing. It is the reason that all the rocks are floating, so to speak. Like what do we think would be happening at the like core of it? Like this is a place that is probably very dangerous, because that's why they send adventurers to go collect the unobtainium. But like, are we thinking like this is like the mountain peak, which is like which it just has thousands of islands just spinning around almost like a tornado, or is it like a deep pit that kind of like has a lot of caves going out of it, and it is kind of just got a weird sense of gravity? Or
it's just
I like that.
It's just a series of really strong unseen servants that are just moving things around.
I like the idea of like the random floating islands, and I like the idea of like oddly directional gravity.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the weird nature of magic here has caused this kind of to happen. You could come up with maybe like a reason why, if we developed it even further as to why this happens, but it could just be a natural result of all these weird forces just kind of colliding with each other. And
that's
weird. It's like quantum mechanics becomes.
We're not going to actually call it unobtainium. That someone mentioned in the chat. No, this is just a working name.
Yeah. Also, we can obtain it. So.
Yeah. Are we designing the area where the nexus and the cities are, or are we designing the adventuring site?
I'd say let's do the area with the cities, because then we can sort of work out what they need.
So
you're gonna have to start there anyway.
So if we are designing this area where you've got these floating islands sort of rotating around, some which just sort of whiz off, others which sort of rejoin it, what does the main city look like then? Like the primary site where the adventurers are going to hail from?
Any suggestions, chat?
In my head, I'm looking at either it's going to be like a massive mountain carved out, like almost like not quite like a Taurus, but where you've got it spanning like a great cavern with things built up the side, gravity being directional, that sort of thing. That's what's going in my head, at least.
I like the one I have in my head is more like it's almost like they've leashed like multiple like medium-sized islands to like together to create this sort of city. So it's kind of like it's not one massive city, but it is a massive city of a lot of small islands which are all being connected together.
I like the idea. I had a similar image in my head before, no, I think that'd be good. So you got like the main block of the island where they've carved it, built on it.
You can sail in on an inverted waterfall. I like that. That's really cool because like you then have a floating thing, and then there's kind of like this river that's going along, and then you might have like a prairie and a port next to it, and then the river just sort of like curves upwards and goes up towards this.
Great city.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
No, that's cool. It's like, guys, I'm sinking upwards.
Yeah. Well, no, so if you accident, well, it could also if you accidentally. Yeah, it's like it's kind of like the lift where it also means that no one's at real risk of falling because if we make it so that the nexus is kind of on the central city, it could just be that gravity would almost be directional towards it.
Because wouldn't the Nexus not be here? Because I thought the typo was the Nexus itself was a dangerous place.
Fair point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we're not living like the closer you get to it, the more dangerous it is. But if you're in this weird kind of like quote unquote
Goldilocks
where
so
it's safe, to borrow.
well, it's like it'd probably be like you're within a few miles of it, so you're close enough that you can easily draw power and stability from it, but you're far enough away that everything doesn't get messed up by it being too powerful. In this case, with gravity, everything just either crushes towards it or just.
I actually think that like it probably a little further out, but it's just one of those things where like those fantasy arts where like in the background you got something like impressive. So it's almost like in the background there's like this giant whirling tornado that is just constantly there, and like we're looking and it's like wow that's really cool, and the other everyone's like yeah you don't want to get too close, but it's fine.
I think that's like a good idea though. So like from anywhere, like when you're on the floating city with all these linked, chained islands together, always in the distance you can see there is a great sort of like conflagration of just these massive boulders swirling. I like the idea.
Yeah, no, this is cool. This is really good. I was not expecting us to hit a home run like almost immediately.
Neither would I.
We kind of
I think, yeah, I think it's working well. I was kind of afraid we'd flounder and then end up living. Yeah, well, I think so far we've posed each of our ideas, and I think we're generally on kind of the same lines of like what we're viewing as in the world. But no, this is really good. So the main city is going to be these multiples of lashed rocks together. You're going to have this swirling vortex of just large and small, basically stones and islands, which are just constantly swirling around. And then you've got the citadel, whatever you wish to call it, a number of miles away, but you can always see basically where the Nexus is, but no one goes there.
One does not simply walk to Mordor. That kind of thing.
Well, yeah, one does not simply walk to the Nexus. You get pulled.
Yeah, no,
Well, I like that.
This works.
Also, you could do interesting things like the airships use it to do like the entire slingshot.
Yeah, that could also be why it's faster to get to other places, slower to get back. Because when you're on your way, you slingshot around. I like this. You slingshot around the Nexus.
Well, it probably means that this like one is probably a lot more trade based than other ones might be, because they can make use of that.
They can export really quickly.
Yeah,
I like the idea. And then you've just got like a slow procession of ships coming back.
Right, so what kind of architecture are we thinking for this city?
I'm getting a lot of dwarven vibes.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a very angular kind of, very deliberate kind of geometric shapes that will probably look pretty as it reflects light in different ways, or like towers, like say the cathedral in St. Petersburg Square.
One thing also with that.
St. Petersburg, that's wrong. That weird cathedral with the weird kind of ice cream cone top things on them in Russia.
Yeah.
But, like these kind of weird like
St. Peter's, Peter's Palace or something.
St. Peter's Square. Basilica. It's not.
Yeah.
Basilica. That's.
You know what you mean.
Yeah, that one.
what was
Please
also
excuse the cultural ineptitude.
one thing I'd actually also recommend, or like I'd suggest, is also like big, like very thick, sort of like chains, which are the things linking the things together. So like that. So
Yeah.
it's almost it's like not verging on steampunk, but it's got that sort of like big, heavy metal, kind of like links, that almost like kind of like industrialized, but not actually industrialized feel.
No, I was having sort of the same feeling. Are we going to have the citadel, whatever you want to call it, tethered to the ground? Or are they just tethered together and kind of like their collective mass is keeping them here?
I'd say collected like just together.
Yeah. But yeah, it could be that they naturally just want to sort of drift apart from one another. It's kind of like they've collected the slow moving, basically rocks as they've gone past this area. It could be this kind of like not quite where Flotsam and Jetsam kind of go as a result of kind of eddies from the Nexus, but it could just be that they snagged the slow moving ones as they went past and they're just holding them here, and then they built on them.
Yeah.
But this would be like millennia, eons ago when it was first built. No one's, well, it could be that, yeah, everyone knows how it works. What do you mean? It's like first year we learn this. But no, I like the idea. And it could be that if they do need to expand, they snag another and bring it into orbit.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
Yeah. There is a large new floating mass that is coming close to us. We shall pull it in.
Yeah, that could be like an operation where and it could be that an idea for an adventure. It's inhabited. I like that. I think that could be a good one for if we do run an adventure on it. The city wants to pull in a new thing for building, but it's inhabited.
Or maybe it's like you're being sent there to scope it out, and it turns out there are people there.
Could be another reason why people travel out, because they're looking for more land masses to bring in so they can expand.
Yeah.
Could be a reason of going, we've got a lot of people here. We can easily support more people. Problem is space. I like it. This is okay. I have to be honest, this is going a lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah, no, I thought we were going to have a big, just kind of umming and ahhing about everything, but it's been going pretty well. This may, in fact, be the best episode we've done so far in terms of staying on topic.
Yeah,
which is good. But
as someone in the comments just said, so one massive harpoon gun to collect a new mineable landmass. That could also be it. Like if they need raw materials, they pull in these large landmasses as they go past, mine them out, and then set them loose again. Nice idea. I like it.
I like that. Yeah.
That could be what. It could also be like, as I said, like the eddy currents as they're going past the Nexus. That the city is positioned in such a way that they're not in the direct path, but they're near it. So if they want to pull something in, they can, and it's just naturally going to move near the city.
Yeah, so I guess it's like heavy. It's probably like a heavy mining city then. Like
that could be what they export.
Yeah, I think mining is probably a big thing in this world in general. Given resources are going to be based entirely on their being able to.
Well, in this section anyway.
Yeah, I think. Well, it could be that like the city may know of other nexuses like out there, and they trade them for things they can't get here.
So
which is how economy works. But we'll get to that.
Interesting point is it just one city around this nexus, or are there more than one?
Yeah, like city-states.
So
I like the idea of a singular city, though, personally. Okay. That's just my thought, though.
I think that couldn't work. Like, you could always find out there's some people that are like doing something crazy, like trying to live on the ground. But I think having this one major city, for the region, also very good.
Well, it could just be that they're all you got the big central, the original city. And then you've kind of got the new ones that have been pulled in and built on and connected. which are still part of the city, but sort of not necessarily separately governed, but they serve different purposes. Like, it's perfectly flat. Let's build an academy. No, I really like this idea. I'm liking this setting so far. So we kind of touched on economy, trade, settlements, and things. Shall we talk about the sort of people, populations that we're going to find here in this world, in this area at least?
So I'm generally of the opinion that we should avoid typical like D&D setting associations with particular races.
So not just dwarves here.
Yes, it's not just dwarves. As you both know, I like having Drow have a more
Well, actually,
more of a presence in general world, development than them just being underground and generally not most people.
Could be they're just not heard of here, or if they are, they're really rare.
well, as in, like, regardless though, like, if you think about the kind of like the area, like, what traits that are advantageous to survive is not actually, despite this being a mining thing, so most people go to dwarves, but because it's like weird gravity, technically the more dexterous is a better ability.
You can fly as well.
Well,
Eminently useful.
I'd probably say like more dexterous because remember there's weird gravity here, so people just
Getting used to the sudden shifts.
Yeah.
So things like elves would be a good option here. Gnomes as well in some cases, gnomes being sort of like gnomes, halflings being sort of like very nimble, light on their feet. I like that idea. And then, as we sort of mentioned, Nexus touched, as in those native Nexuses born here. Which would be like generations upon generations, born under the influence.
Do we want a physical identifier for such, maybe their eyes are a particular color, that's loosely aligned to whatever particular nexus they're near. So, if they're born with purple eyes, then they're easily identified as being, attuned to a particular nexus in particular.
Yeah, well, it can be per region. I think because I guess our Nexus is coming across as very gravity themed, and isn't gravity normally done with purple or something?
With what?
Purple is often the color people use for gravity, purple or black.
So it could be that they're just sort of very. That could also be kind of almost like the color scheme, as it were, of the city as well. Lots of blacks, lots of purples. Might be a Drow, to be honest.
I would like to stray away from blacks because I'd rather to avoid any kind of massively somber, evil-looking thing. I think you can do plentiful things with purple because purple is a really cool color, but you can also do things with other maybe not bright and yellows and whatnot, but those sort of colors where it's still it's not depressing to look at.
Warm colors.
Well, obviously,
purple is also the color. Purple is also the colour that makes people want to buy things. So I think it has sort of a double link. So I think purple's a good one. I also like the idea of sort of subtle physical traits linked to just being in constant presence of Nexus. I don't know, your hair just sort of flows, not quite changes colour, but almost as if it's directional gravity around your head.
So it kind of grows upwards.
People quite tall as well, directional subjective gravity. No, I think that we've got the Nexus touch we're thinking of, and we can almost kind of subtly design or shift something for if we do this again. So that's one idea. We're thinking dexterous races, things like gnomes, halflings, humans, elves being sort of a predominant people here.
What about construct as well, Warforged or?
Well, I think yeah. I think we have kind of made this is. I think this is going to be a very tech kind of heavy place. Industry is going to be the big thing.
Yeah, so we can borrow from Eberron.
Well, this is Nexus.
Yes, it is.
Copyright pending. But no, I think that it's a good idea, and a lot of mechanical quasi-magical, mechanical wonders being the thing.
What's the mechanical magic?
Well, it could be also like the way that they view magic could almost be in a very mathematical, like physics style sense. Yeah,
like
they
a
view
series of cogs
magic
kind of
like science. Yeah, I like the idea.
Yes,
And I am really liking this.
the machinery of magic, as it were.
Yeah, it could be that that's just how they view it. Magic is like almost they view magic as a tool.
Also, like one thing I would that might also control the demographics a little is how is the city ruled?
I guess that's down to
Meritocracy.
personal choice. Yeah, it could.
Yeah.
Well, that
Like
could be what
meritocracy.
it's supposed to be. But
Yeah.
it kind of
I have-
it just turns into what's the one where you just like reward friends and things? Is it oligarchy?
Nepotism.
Like because there's a lot of systems that are,
No.
like there's a lot of organizational systems like that end up having
Oh,
ideally we're supposed to be this.
we
It
have a
kinda turned
suggestion on
into
this.
this.
We have a suggestion here. A very gameable way of transferring political power. And I guess one that where it could it's very gameable, but also heavily abused by those in power. So we can kind of keep with the entire like the house wins nepotism sort of thing.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a clan or it could. We're talking about like the ruling body of this place. Like how is it ruled?
Well, a bit like because I guess there's two ways. Because if in terms of like I'm trying to think of a good gameable way of transferring power that isn't just the Hunger Games.
So, I did a campaign a long time ago where ability to become ruler was reliant on holding certain artifacts, a number of which were lost. That reminds me of Forgotten Realms with the Imaskari. They had the ancient artifacts of their people, which were considered it. So, yeah, it could be a plot hook as well.
Yeah.
As in someone just suggested, as in a way of ensuring a group keep power, is to ensure that we hold it could be like the ancient tools of the city, like the first hammer that chained the islands together, that sort of thing, like historical significance.
Idea. Because like when people die, like we could have them be like quite like the society be. This is jumping a little forward to like some aspects of religion, but you know the sort of ancestor sort of. While it's not a religion, it's kind of like a cultural phenomenon where it's all about like honoring those that came before you, and that could be tied into this of like this is something like my forefather has done. And here is like a token of proof of it, and that's kind of like that's almost like a merit to show your worth for like being considered for like a position on some sort of council.
I like it. So it's like my great grandfather chained the great mining island to the city. This was the hammer he used. By this is my right to speak for the city.
I'm gonna put down here.
Could I just interrupt briefly?
Yep.
With Tom's most recent comment.
Do you want to read it out for the benefit of our listeners?
Yes, we're looking at looking at setting up candidacy leadership for these cities, and then Nick screwed things by backstabbing the party.
You win some, you lose some.
I have
But I
never,
like
I have
that
never
idea.
once backstabbed the party. Roll deception.
Roll a 1 because you do fumble. But I know I like that idea. It's kind of like a meritocracy by artifact, as in like by sort of object association, where it's going, my forefather did this. Here is his seal, sort of going, but like he did this great deed. That is the right I hold.
I've written down technically a meritocracy. It doesn't always work out.
But not. Yeah, it's not your merits. It's the it's kind of like merits of your family. Like, what has not
Yes,
like
I like
communism.
that, where it's not
Like
the person, it's
communism.
the family, and you
Family
contribute to your
first.
family, and
Yeah.
the more of the more your family does, the more
Yeah,
likely you are
aristocracy,
to- yeah.
as Tom says.
Yeah,
It's not aristocracy, but yeah,
Almost-
it's like, yeah.
perhaps it's like it's a case of it's supposed to be a meritocracy, but it's inadvertently turned into an aristocracy.
Aristocratic aristocracy.
Yeah, mostly because of how the people in charge are like, essentially gatekeeping everyone else out.
Yeah.
So
As
Steam art,
there could be an
politically
entire.
stealing the great deeds from other people under their noses, and
It's also they can have like an entire forum where it's like we need to judge whether the thing you're saying is whether the thing you're saying is this massive like advantage to the city. We need to discuss whether it actually is and whether we think that it is worthy of joining our ranks. It's that sort of thing where when the city was founded, it was probably built upon the ideas of like, people that work get the jobs. But it's not. But it's like it's slowly over time warped slightly as people have taken advantage of the situation.
as we've had a comment saying, does this mean most of the adventurers are going to be nobles? I think it doesn't just have to be nobles.
I think
It could also
doesn't
be
have
that
to be.
you want to prove yourself and become like a higher member to bring up your family.
Yeah, like this could be like council seats or like high-ranking seats in guilds and whatnot. And if you're an adventurer, you're typically like not going to have those because otherwise you'd be sending other people out to do the dangerous stuff for you.
But you want to send your younger family members out to make a name for themselves and therefore generate prestige for your family.
Yeah,
Or you
that could be it.
out so they can get something for your child to claim they did.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's loads of stories in history of other of
Like champions for family.
family who send out their youngest that have just come of age to leave and find something to bring back that would be of value to the community or the family in this case. And
So it's
once
kind of
you've
like
done
it's
that,
not
you are welcomed
it's not-
into the family
yeah.
proper.
it's not personal merit they care about. It's the merit as a whole of the family.
Yeah, so it's family above everything. I think
Yeah.
that's a cool idea. So like
So I think because it also flips a lot of things on its head, because that's normally like quite a dwarven attitude. It's like clan before your personal self.
yeah, but because of the nature of the world, this kind
Yeah.
of developed and became.
You have to work together.
Yeah,
Like you don't work together, we all die.
and the only way we could do this, fairly, would be to arrange everybody into the families and then work in a particular.
Well, yeah, it doesn't just have to be blood though.
Yeah, no,
It could be that you adopt people into a clan. It could be like guilds and that sort of thing. Like they
it could
become
be
your
people
family.
looking to join. Family doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be like a maternal, like a parental family or like ancestry or anything.
Yeah.
It could just be like family, as in you are
Like
a
sworn in
part-
clans and that sort
like
of thing.
tribes or
Or we
As
could
we-
go back to like things where city states. It's like we could call it like rather than look at the family, it is the state, and rather than that meaning the entire.
Yes, I like that.
thing.
You want citizenship. You start with nothing, but we will bankroll you until you are of age to go out and do something to bring back that will be of benefit to the
Prestige.
state.
And
will
then
be
you can
invited to
join
the
like
family,
this state. You can.
where you will have some rights to do what, like maybe you'll be provided with like accommodation that is not sponsored as you were a child. If you fail,
It
you
could
have
also,
some-
yeah. Well, it could kind of be like, like you'll go and do these great deeds, and you'll come back and you'll sort of present what you've done, and hope that one of the clans will go, okay, we'll take you.
and
No,
unfortunately,
you've proved yourself.
yeah.
Like
It's
you
a bit
proved
corrupt.
yourself.
Well, because you can do like different stages, like like finding artifacts or things of like that. That could be for, like you want to become like member of the council, or you want to kind of like get that. Whereas if you would just want to be accepted into the like a state, it
Yeah.
might be just be going out and proving that something you've done is beneficial to like the state.
It's beneficial to the state. I like that.
And
Yeah.
this is why we have travelers. And even though it's still, some people will travel out far enough away to where they'll find other places where other people are living, that they're not used to that, or they'll be looked on with suspicion because they've come from somewhere else. But it also gives
Yeah,
you why they
That's
left.
why like outsiders, like travelers, are probably not going to be welcome. It's going like, you have done nothing for the state. You've got no status here.
Well, they're not going to be massively, because remember they are big on trading, so they're not going to be, and like they are not the sort of civilization that is out against outsiders.
They're not xenophobic.
Yeah.
Or we could have in between like large settlements of actually unified groups of people, little spits of land on the surface of people that have either failed or have dishonoured them on their state in some way. And
Exile.
Yeah, they've been exiled, and they just kind of live on the surface, which is not not great. Or they may live closer to the nexuses, where they can kind of eke out a barely sustainable living.
No, I like the way we've kind of done the politics here, which is that everything here revolves around the overall benefit and good that you bring to the state.
So,
as in, I think it's sort of very like it's kind of like a community-minded civilization.
Yeah, so
almost.
We've kind of established a generally lawful evil society here, almost.
Well, I wouldn't say lawful evil. I wouldn't say lawful evil. I'd say lawful neutral.
Yeah, I'd say more lawful neutral. Like there is a lot of places where it can be gamed, but also it's not inherently evil, so to speak.
We have to do what's necessary because of the nature of the
world. We do what is necessary to survive, to keep the city flying.
Like, because for example, like you could say, like the American system, like not to get too into politics, like isn't especially good aligned, but neither is it evil, so to speak. So it's that sort of thing where like it itself doesn't perpetuate any kind of corruption. However, the people within it can take advantage of its shortcomings.
I'm not sure if it's just the fact that we're live streaming this, or that this episode has just been a rip-roaring success. It might be both. We shall find out at some point in the future if it just evolves into a cavalcade of hilarious edits. But
I mean, it might. I like what we've got so far.
Yeah, no, this is really cool. I really like it.
So I'm still catching up with notes. So it is. So society.
We've now kind of inhabited the surface a little bit in between cities, which is good.
A little. Well, it could always be that they're not quite. They are kind of raised above physically as well. The citadel, the state as well. So it could be that they don't quite look down anywhere else. They're kind of going, "You're not bringing in any benefit to us. Have you got stuff to trade with us? No. Why are you here?"
Yeah. Oh, you're passing through. Well, we're not going to, if you can pass through then.
I think it's sort of like they'll welcome you. Thing, just spending money and such. But if you try and sort of muscle in and sort of set yourself up, they'll kind of go, "Who are you?"
To get into a settlement, you have to provide a gift.
Yeah, it's like they are very extremely welcoming until someone is not really bringing anything, and then they get a lot more they're not big on people begging and stuff because you're not really.
You're not contributing. It's all about contribution. Everybody has a job. You don't have a job, we will give you a job.
Yeah, well, to Insert City.
Yeah.
If you would like to make use of our facilities, you must present something to us, and we'll give them a thing we found on our travels that may be of use to them. It doesn't even have to be anything particularly significant. It could just be like a gift or a token of respect, or it could be here is a small piece of insert rare element.
It's kind of like you want citizenship here. Why should we grant you citizenship? What are you bringing to us? I kind of look at like Australia and their immigration,
like a job interview.
Yeah,
it's kind of like what skills can you bring to us?
Though there should still be a hierarchy because I want to make sure that we're talking about state, I want to make sure that this doesn't turn into communism.
There will be a hierarchy. Let's get like an overarching council, that form of thing, and like the guilds, the city.
The state could have a person who is their head, their head person who attends the council, and there's a citadel at the very top where the council meets and.
That's probably going to be I'm viewing this as the original, the original island, the first.
Yeah,
is where
the
you've got
others have come in between there. Yeah.
I'm thinking of like the central one's going to be like the Citadel, and then you've got like the guild houses, that form of thing, like the Great Marketplace, that style. And then the outer ones are going to be the more specific, like colleges of magic and like accommodations, like leisure, that sort of thing.
Foreign embassies of some description.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Actually, embassy was the wrong word. I mean more like amenities for non-locals.
Yeah.
So there may be like a small, a tiny floating island that has residences for them as they're passing through.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea.
So he keeps them apart, but he keeps them here. So something feudal Japan used to do, because they were very insular when it came to outsiders travelling to the islands of Japan. What they ended up doing, especially when the Dutch came around with the East India Company, the shogun basically created kind of like a small artificial island which had a series of Dutch inhabitants on it, and they just kind of lived there on their own. It was all walled off, and very rarely could they venture into the nation properly. But they were always there, but they were kept separate.
No, I think it's a good one.
I again think that I think that's being a little, because remember we're trying to avoid them being too secular, because again they're a big trading partner. But again, like they essentially like think maybe it's instead of like they're walled off, maybe it's almost like there's like political stigmata around against
interacting with them.
or less on like interacting with them, but like anyone who is not pulling like their or not providing something to society or the state is kind of like discriminated against to a degree. So like they're the most welcoming and like like happy people to like when you're like it's still kind of like equal situation where you're giving, they're giving, you're taking, they're taking, sort of thing. They're like they like probably love all like this sort of trade where it's all on equal footing. But if there's someone who kind of like, I don't know, there's a merchant who comes and trades here, but he's like, he comes one time and he's like, well, I'm broke. Can you give me something? And like suddenly there's like entire shift in how everyone sort of treats them.
Yeah, so I provide you a service. You must now do something for me, and you will be bound to that until.
Well, it's sort of like you want to come and trade here. Perfect. Come, set up your stall. Wonderful. Sell your goods. Oh, you've come. Oh, you've got nothing. Why are you here?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like not quite like imports, but like if you're coming here to trade, great. We love having people selling their wares here. You're providing things we can't normally get to our people. You show up out of the blue with nothing to trade with our people. Why did you come?
Oh, you're just here to use our facilities and then move on.
Yeah. So, you're looking for. But I mean, if you're paying for things like pumping gold into the city, they probably wouldn't care too much.
Oh yeah, but like beggars and things, they just won't.
I think that's the lawful sort of side of everything. Yeah.
And there's probably a case of like you mentioned, maybe actually this entire idea of like a place that this is kind of like almost like foreign quarter. Instead, it's for almost like the begging quarter. They send people who can't do, and they just give them shit jobs.
You're doing something for the city, so we'll make sure you've got food to eat, a place to sleep.
Yeah.
And those that don't maybe live just below where the entrance to the city is. If we're having the floating idea, obviously there needs to be a way for them to get up there. So there could just be like a small settlement of people that are just kind of on the periphery below that aren't allowed in, and we'll kind of use that to harangue or harass people that come in and asking for stuff. But it generally doesn't work. But I mean,
possibly.
Yeah, that could also then have the entire thing where again, like the gatekeeper there is like would like people and then they have like an appeals court somewhere near that bit where people are like, oh look, I did this great thing, and the magistrate's like, you mean you fed the dog? That's really helpful. Next.
I like that. So it's kind of like when if you're like the begging quarters, as it were, and you kind of want to move up, you need to prove that you have ability, that you're doing things for the state, and yeah, I like it. It sort of works. I mean, do we want them to sort of have like a terrestrial, like at ground level presence? Like they're probably not like a port or something to ferry people up.
Well, there is. So it would either be the port at the bottom side of the waterfall, or it would be some kind of area near the entrance port to the city.
But
Because
we didn't want it tethered to ground. So I think from the ground, how would you get up?
Well, because remember the idea of the inverted waterfall.
That's the first one.
Yeah. Because it could either be on one side of that where of the river, where before the invert, or after it on the floating rock where they may have just essentially like a beggar's quarter that they're like, you can't enter, go to this island and down below, or that's
pull out a ticket and wait to be called.
Well, yeah, it could be sort of like when an outsider, when there's not quite like an outsider gate, but there's going to be like that will take you to the beggar's quarter, and from there you're going to need to prove your case and to get into the city proper.
Well, they probably wouldn't put it. What they probably might do is they have this building where essentially you go in and then you're accepted to go to the left, which takes you up to the city. If you're rejected, you go to the right, which takes you down to the shithole.
Yeah, if you need to get into the city, you need to have a gift or the thing of value, and they will issue it. If not, you will go.
Or to prove that you're there to do something, or to bring some value to the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rather than and if it doesn't go the way you want it to, they'll send you to what is essentially kind of like the Argos waiting room of doom, where you just kind of sit there just waiting for your number to be called in this weird kind of purgatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Where you've kind of got like that kind of like the gatehouse, and if anyone ever tried to assault it, they just head up to the city and just go, "Come get us."
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, the thing I like about this this idea at least is that it makes sense with the kind of world we've created, where you need to be really vigilant about who gets in and who gets to use resources and how we're distributing things. So it needs to make sense from that regard. And I think
it's also if you're approaching from ground level, I think they'd be kind of going, that means you haven't come from our city, because we won't travel by ground. Like, we won't have ground troops. We've got mechanical marvels and wonders, and that's how a lot of traders who we invite to come to our city will arrive. Is basically they'll come back on our ships.
Yeah. So
if you're coming at us from ground, who are you? It's like we're not expecting you.
Yeah, no, I like this. This is cool.
Because I think that's kind of the way they sort of control who comes in. Because if they're slingshotting their ships around the Nexus to go off, and they go, oh, would you like to come back to our city and you can sell your wares there? And rather than us buying them from you, you come, you sell them in our city, you make money, your goods make their way into our populace. Everyone is happy. So I think that's they will go out with their goods, sell them, and then on their way back they'll go, if any merchants wish to spend a month selling their wares in our city, feel free to sort of come along, free journey, free room and board, and then when you get there, okay, you need to sell for a month now.
Well, it's also actually, because just one thing we need to revisit a little is the entire idea of selling, because there is not going to be one unified currency. So would it be more of a bartering, object for object?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because between these different citadels,
we're going to value things.
It's not going to be like a singular world where things will have different value in different places.
Well, it's also there is probably no unified bank, as in there may be banks, but they're not. It's not going to be a bank, because often the reason why currency sort of exists across a nation is because there are banks across that nation that can value it.
I think a barter system is probably going to be the easiest way from people outside the city. Internally, there's probably going to be internal currency that people will trade with, Here, you can expect it to be metal.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to be the most. Like, I think that like is a standardized currency you'd expect.
Yeah, so
I
rather
mean,
than
in
walking
other
around with gold
cultures,
pieces, it would be like trade bars or something. Like you know, or
well, it could be coins.
well, we
It could be
make
trade
coins, right?
bars. It could be yeah. Like coins could work because I mean, if we're going down to like the mining route, they pull in these floating rocks, mine them out, and then set them loose again. Metal is going to be something they'll have an abundance of, so it would make sense to use that as their currency.
Yeah, so metal coins would.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we've already established that trade will be important. So we need to have a, you know, obviously, like in the real world, we're going to need some kind of universally agreed on system of valuation for things. So
Well, we can sort of, I mean, because they're going to have essentially have like metal coins, we can essentially just rename the coin something, and it will essentially just translate into like D&D coins. Where maybe instead of kind of like things where it's like gold coins, like silver coins, copper coins, it might be things like aluminum, aluminum, steel,
aluminium.
Yeah, things like that.
Like rare metals that other places are going to go, what the fuck is this coin made of? But I think like having them have like an exceedingly good knowledge of like metallurgy is going to be important. Like they're going to be like the experts in like metal armors and weapons. Like they've got the resources, they've got the people that know what they're doing. So they could like export. Oh, you want a set of plate armor? Oh, you need to go to the Citadel. Like they're the metal workers. I like it. So I think that'd be like one of the
worth
main.
about the same, given that
Sorry?
gold is. I imagine gold would be kind of worth the same because
Yes. Yeah.
gold derives its value because it doesn't tarnish. So.
Well, though at the same time, it's not a because remember the thing is like gold is also not especially usable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say
So do you think more
they're utilitarians. I think that like
Yeah.
utilitarian would be the best way to describe
gold
them.
looks nice, but is it?
Well,
can I build a house out of it? No.
I think it would be used. It would be used to decorate a thing which has a great use.
Yeah. So if we would
As
say
this
that,
is extremely useful, you might choose to decorate it. But I think it's sort of like if it isn't useful, what is the point in making it look good as well?
Well, it's also like think of it this way: they may not have a lot of it because they may export most of it because they're like, well, we don't have any use for this.
They all seem to want it so much. We don't know why. Well, I think they know why, but they'd go. They're willing to give us loads of stuff we can't get here for this metal we barely use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think what we just so we don't end up overburdening an economy system. I think the best way to do it would just be to replace what we
Yeah, the coins.
Yeah, and
Yeah, just replace the metals.
Yeah, so the most useful ones, like in terms of metals for building things, we'd be looking at iron. So iron is probably worth quite a bit.
Well, iron could be like the low tier, then you have like steel.
Yeah, or perhaps
Titanium?
even go into
like-
materials like bronze. Maybe the bronze is worth because it's made of tin and copper.
Could be like bronze, iron, steel, aluminium,
Yeah.
or titanium. I think titanium would be like
Titanium's probably-
equivalent to flat would be like titanium.
Yeah, 'cause-
It's a hard, strong metal. I like it. It's good.
Let's see. So I guess so.
I think
Gold.
exchange rates would just be basically the same, but we'll just keep them as different names because it
Yeah.
makes more sense in the setting.
So I guess. So I said so. Platinum is
Titanium.
Yeah,
Yum.
titanium.
I will give you 2 tits for this.
Oh, God. How much
And
is this long
I'm a
spear?
child.
2 tits.
gold would be steel.
Yep.
Um,
Silver would be iron, I think. And then copper could be like bronze.
I think we should go with tin. I think because tin is.
Tin could work.
let's go with tin.
I like it. It sets it apart, and it makes sense with the city.
Yeah. So
I think this is the thing. Like all the background stuff we've done, like this stuff now really makes sense.
Yeah, because then the value of that currency can now be used into putting things together with it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like an ingot um, of steel will build a sword effectively. Or
Yeah,
will build
exactly.
many swords.
It has uses.
Yeah, like
Yeah, and
an
like
ingot of titanium would produce an amazing set of armor, or produce an amazing like facade for a building.
and it's also you can show off your wealth to a degree because instead of being like, oh look, here is my statue of gold, you can be like, here is my statue of like titanium. Clearly, I have so much. I have accrued so much like titanium that.
Could you imagine how how heavy that would be? Here is my titanium statue. Oh yes.
But I like these ideas. Like, I think it's going well.
A quick point though.
Yeah.
I guess how frivolous would the upper echelons be? With like so essentially we are going to have like the people who are more well off again, the people who are less well off. Like how much because they are relatively utilitarian. You know the word utilitarian. How will they show off the difference in status, so to speak? Like, so I guess I want to try and avoid things where essentially everyone's just is the same. I kind of want there to be like an obvious difference in like the person who is like high ranked in the state against a person who is like just a lowly shopkeeper. But how would that happen? Or how would that show?
It could be an instance of having displaying one's wealth is displaying that the city that you belong to or the family you belong to is prosperous. So they would have a lot of very ostentatious or like very complex sculptures or architecture that is there for when people that pass through the city are able to tell stories of how amazing their city looks and how much resources they have and how strong they are.
I'd lean less towards ostentatiousness because I think ostentatiousness has its place if you're trying to sort of display. I think it would need to be a display of skill, would be a big thing. As in, like, whatever you're using to denote your status needs to be something that isn't just showy or flashy. It's something that serves a purpose, demonstrates skill and ability.
Like there is a maybe less on the sort of like shows the purpose because essentially everything in the city shows the purpose, but essentially it's the sort of almost Renaissance-esque. They put that much effort on making it look good while it still holds to its purpose, so to speak.
Like dwarven crafting, it looks
how
good.
Sharp
And
my angles here, like,
yeah.
how perfect are like could you cut a piece of meat on the corner here? It is well
there
or like
there is
erosion does not apply to this because we shape it so perfectly that and whenever erosion becomes a thing, we will reshape it and produce an even more accurate representation.
there's a word.
But yeah.
It's like cultural. It's not a cultural economy. It's like where essentially there's people are making things of culture. I'm trying to think how to describe this because people.
Making things that would symbolize culture would be things like architecture or like libraries or.
No, we've forgotten one thing. Like because remember they've got this big thing on honoring like their forefathers or for like their. So maybe
have like an amazing graveyard of like mausoleums or something.
Or well, because remember this also needs to extend to how like if you walk up to someone, you should be able to see that they are someone who is like important. And obviously obviously because they're not going to be like ostentatious in the way of like, oh, I have gold flowing robes and whatnot, because that doesn't really make sense for the society. But like but they probably have something they have something that allows people to recognize, oh yes, this person is important. This person is someone that is like a mover in this city. And I guess how we would represent that.
Well, we could do it using insignia from like military, for instance. So like maybe they would have a particular symbol that denotes the kind of relative value of someone, which is probably the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, we would have to come up with a way that
We could always do like what the Drow do, where essentially they have symbols of the state, so to speak.
Yeah, like all kind of like the guild, the clan that they belong to.
So I
As like
symbols
a
of
maker's
state,
mark on something they're wearing, do you mean? Or...
yeah, it could be like symbols of like what state they're from, but also like symbols of what guild they belong to, what
Like insignias of their deeds.
yeah.
I've got an image in my head from the Mandalorian. You know where you get the signet.
Don't spoil. I haven't seen it yet.
All I will say is that basically when they do a great deed, they mark a signet of like a great battle that they fought.
Deeds and titles that they possess, because I guess that then also makes it a bigger thing of like, oh, I am an honorary member of this guild, and like that's kind of like a deed in itself. That's something you'd be like, that's a big thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kieran.
Yes.
Stargate, Jafar. Some have the tattooed symbol, and some have the gold inlaid symbol. And if you're really
Yeah.
you would have the armor that's kind of inlaid with the same thing. So it could be something along those lines, where body modification maybe is a representative of.
I like that idea.
Prestige.
Because that's also kind of like I think not necessarily permanent. Well, it could be things like, so one thing I did recently, you saw with the Wild Elves in my game, was one of the ways that they showed status in the clan was by the unique array of piercings and tattoos that each of them possessed. So, for example, there were certain piercings which were only allowed to be worn by people of particular status.
Yeah,
and it's a very...
It's like people who.
Sorry?
It's like the Maori who practice ritual scarification, and they would scar themselves in particular ways to denote their tribe affiliation or if they're leaders and so on. And yeah, we could. Yeah, I don't think we should use scarification because it would.
But I like the idea of piercings and others, because I think it's also the piercings made of particular metals could indicate.
I put down because I guess I'm less big on the sort of like things determined by piercings, but I do quite like the idea of like if you have a lot of like essentially spare wealth, or less of a better term, you might have like you might craft yourself like a not like a replacement arm, but like a augmented thing to go with your arm.
Well, we said they're very tech heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could make.
Kind of like there's like the exosuits, like that sort of thing. Like things like that just make you not necessarily like quasi-magical items, as it were.
So essentially, they've got a little cyberpunk only magical.
Yeah,
cyberpunk.
Yeah. I think that's sort of a way. Like they've raised the thing that they are good at. The thing they're skilled at. They have had the skill and the power and the money to make themselves even better.
Yeah, you could have the analog nature of the kind of technology we're trying to, like steampunky, like cog wheels turning, kind of to we could use that as a system for the airships, for instance. Like it's just a giant cog wheel that kind of turns and produces steam and all sorts of weird
So I think like high fantasy steampunk.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes, it's very
so I think that
and it's present. Like the Antikythera mechanism, which was if you know what that is, at least the analog computer that was found in a wreck in from ancient Greece that was used to predict zodiac. It's an amazing piece of equipment. But yeah, it was all like based on cogs and really precise workings, like an old watch style would. And but I mean that's kind of what steampunk goes through, at least.
So we kind of want. So the general idea is we kind of want like insignia and things to denote their deeds, and one way of especially showing status is kind of like, as we put sort of like the cyberpunk, the not necessarily permanent modifications, but additions that they've made to their bodies to make themselves better at what they're doing to better serve the state. I've got loads of money. I can afford to create these wondrous things that make me twice as strong as a man to better break that sort of thing.
So one thing to try and tie back into this, because like we still like need to have like the gods around.
Yeah.
And would like their kind of power base be present in the city or sent to the city?
I think each city would probably have a god of in particular that they would align themselves with.
Industry would be this one, I think.
Yeah,
God of industry.
This one would be all about the industry and the metalwork and.
Yeah, so if we're gonna go down that route, I think we probably should draw from the god from the
Eberron.
Where this is really a thing.
Well, not necessarily like a straight transplant, but like that style. I get what you mean.
Yeah, establishing the kind of like the dwarven / warforged / depending on the kind of elven race.
And I also like, because we're going a little Fey-esque with like, while people are never really going to meet the thing, they're theoretically around. They're theoretically in them. Like
ever
they kind of sort of go, every miraculous creation that we invent is a way of us worshipping this god.
Yeah.
As in, that could be their way of worship. Invention, industry. Like every time they pull in a new island, mine it to its core, and basically craft using it, it's a worship. It's their form of honor and praise to their god.
Yeah, use it, and producing like weird Wallace and Gromit style contraptions.
I like this idea.
Yeah. Okay, so this episode is kind of, we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. This has been a very good and productive episode.
Yeah.
I think we should continue this conversation in the next episode.
Definitely.
I think we'll leave it here to kind of recollate the rest of the notes we have. This has been an amazing success. I was not expecting it to go this well. I think we're kind of on the same wavelength here. We've just kind of honed in on a thing we'd like, and but yeah. This has been very cool so far. I think if we try and run a game in this setting, I think
it'll be very interesting.
Very interesting. But with that said, the next episode ideally will be recorded 2 weeks from now. Now that everything is fixed and internet was all good and no longer a bloody problem again, it should all be fine. For those of you that listen live, thank you very much for taking part, and the contributions that you have made that we are going to include, we will obviously reference you as part of that. But from myself, Kieran, and Andy, this has been To Ash As You Say, the companion podcast of the Phoenix Games Club. Thank you for listening, everybody, and take care. Goodbye.
Bye.